And when Donald Trump announced on August 1st that U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods would be 35%, up from 25%, Mark Carney underscored that items covered by CUSMA would still be tariff-free. So unlike specific targeted tariffs on softwood lumber and steel, on aluminum, on cars, even many business owners weren't sure if their goods were covered by CUSMA. So joining us now to get some clarity is Dan Kiselbach, Miller Thomson's managing partner here in Vancouver. And he's here with us in studio. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Now, things have felt rather topsy-turvy on this issue since the tariff war began earlier this year. So as a lawyer who watches trade closely, how are things feeling now?
Well, I think the advantage goes to folks that can swiftly adapt. It's been, as you say, topsy-turvy. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are concerned about where their businesses are going. And right now we're fielding a lot of calls from folks that want to know how to deal with the situation. So that's what we're doing.
What are they asking you?
Well, how can we minimize the duties? First and foremost, as you pointed out, the Prime Minister has indicated that we can, as a country, take advantage of what I would call the CUSMA shield, making sure that goods are eligible for preferential tariff treatment, duty-free treatment when they enter into the U.S. And you can do that by taking advantage of the rules under the Canada-U.S Mexico Agreement. So that's what we're trying to do, is give people advice on how to qualify their goods under that agreement.
Still, I mean, it's still confusing, right? We've heard of a Canadian company, for example, that stopped shipping its skincare products to the States because its shea butter comes from Ghana. So how do we know what's covered by CUSMA?
Well, there's several steps, but what you've got to do is figure out what the rule of origin is for the under the Canada-U.S Mexico Agreement, and whether or not your goods will fit within the agreement. And there's some technical rules, but basically you've got to have enough regional content in the good to qualify under CUSMA. And then you also have to meet usually a shift from the inputs from a widget to a gidget. So there has to be some level of production, and then a processing requirement sometimes is required. So there's a little bit of analysis that goes into that, and that's why lawyers are required, or customs brokers, or other folks.
Well, again, the owner of a Toronto telescope company told the CBC that registering his company for CUSMA compliance, it wasn't a priority until now.
Right.
So what do you make of that?
Well, I think that's correct. I mean, it's a bit of a murky world right now. There are estimates from last year that indicated about 38% of all goods that could have been certified under CUSMA were certified. And the reason is that under the existing regime, many of the goods would have entered into the United States duty-free anyways without CUSMA. So why bother with the compliance costs? And the other thinking was, if it's 5% duty or less, it's probably not worth the compliance cost to go through this process. So many folks didn't do that. Now, with the rate being 35% at the present time, it's worthwhile going through that analysis and making sure that your goods are CUSMA eligible before you start entering the goods into the country. We know that there's going to be a high level of scrutiny coming up. Audits and so forth will be happening. So it's good to do that upfront work.
Right. Now, if someone's listening right now and they have specific questions about CUSMA compliance, where's a good place to get answers for that?
Well, we're putting on a bit of a road show coming up in Kelowna, in Surrey, and in Vancouver. I think it's the 21st in Kelowna, the 11th of September in Surrey, and the 23rd in Vancouver. And if you Google Miller Thomson or CUSMA compliance sessions, the World Trade Center Vancouver is part of this group of firms that is putting on a free session for folks that want to get CUSMA compliant and take advantage of the CUSMA shield.
All right. Well, we've heard from our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, that 85% of Canada's trade with the U.S. is tariff-free. The Oxford Economics Group says Canada's effective tariff rate is 2.5%, less than Mexico's 4%. So What would you say our effective rate is?
Well, I mean, they're just models based upon information. And, the stats profs will tell you that all models are wrong. Some models are useful. So the indications that I've seen, the estimates from RBC and the U.S. Census Bureau was that 38% of all goods last year were certified. The estimates may have gone up to 50% of all potential goods that could be certified were certified. And that's consistent to what we saw with NAFTA when NAFTA was originally brought into force, that it took a while for folks to get goods certified and do that analysis to make sure that they're, the goods are eligible for that duty-free treatment.
Just in the last week, we've heard from Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford. He called on Canada to get ready. Let's get ready in case Donald Trump suddenly, his quote was, pull the carpet out from underneath us when it comes to CUSMA. He's feeling he could tear that agreement apart early ahead of next year's scheduled review. I mean, do you agree with Doug Ford? Is this would that be a prudent move? And if so, what should we do to prepare?
Well, I think that the Team Canada approach is a good one. The U.S. government has taken a view that tariffs are the Swiss Army knife of diplomacy, so they can do all sorts of things with tariffs to encourage other countries to do what they want. So we have to get ready for some stiff negotiations, and that means that we're going to have to try to make sure that our country and our companies are resilient and ready to expand into other markets, diversify our economy, and enter into some tough negotiations. We also have to deal with other countries. We notice that the Chinese have imposed tariffs on canola, and that is in response to our tariffs on electronic vehicles. And we did that in concert with the Americans. So there's a lot of different pieces that are working out and underplay.
Well, it's fascinating to see the number of stories that are emerging, and some of them are real head scratchers. Let's talk about Bix. When I say Bix, this popular pickle brand, Bix dill pickles made with Canadian cucumbers, with Canadian lids. They're made only for the Canadian market. They're subject to tariffs because if they're processed and jarred, they're processed and jarred in American plants. So it was interesting. Sylvain Charlebois of Dalhousie University, he's a professor there, and he says this is a glaring policy flaw and that it's not an isolated case. So what do you think? Should we change our approach in what you've just described?
Well, this Bix story really reflects the retaliatory tariffs. So you can take a cucumber from Canada, put it in vinegar, put it in a jar, and then bring it back. It's a U.S. product at that time, and so it's subject to retaliatory duties. Prime Minister Carney indicated at the beginning of his term that it was elbows up, and so this retaliatory tariff that was placed on Bix has caused the product to be less desirable and unprofitable to sell in some circumstances. There are many that argue that retaliatory tariffs aren't a good solution, partly because it hurts Canadians more than Americans. But likely that product was put on the retaliatory tariff list because it would impact a Republican district, U.S. economy and jobs, and so that's the reason why it's there.
Well, there's, again, so many stories emerging, Dan, and we're really pleased that you were able to join us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That's Dan Kiselbach, Miller Thomson's managing partner in Vancouver. And as you just heard, they do have some information sessions coming up in the near future on the 21st in Kelowna, on the 11th of September in Surrey, and on the 23rd in Vancouver. So you can look at Miller Thomson's website for more information on that.